It's Spoilerin time. This week on Spoilerin time, we take, as we do every week, all the hard work we do on Cordkillers, our other show, figuring out how to watch stuff, and then talk about the stuff we watched. This week, we'll be talking about the season finale of season 1 of Hannibal, episode 13. Lucky 13. We're also starting a new watch, going to HBO Max to watch Raised by Wolves. We'll be talking about episodes 1 and 2, and we'll be talking about the penultimate WandaVision, season 1, episode 8. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
And more importantly, we are joined by Naim, I almost said it wrong. Naim like dime. Naim Siddiqui, a.k.a. Kuhan from IamKuhan.com. Nailed it. Saved it at the end. That's all that matters.
You did it. You got it. It's fine. Right, hey, listen. Good. Far from the first won't be the last.
Naim, you're going to join us for WandaVision, right? And then
yes, I was going to watch Raised by Wolves, and then I didn't have time.
Ooh, and you can play catch up, though. Ooh, boy.
That can happen. It's good. It's good stuff, though. But let's talk about WandaVision, the first episode that really made no allusion whatsoever to the TV show parody premise. We didn't start off with a credit scene. We didn't have a format that we even were loosely following. This was all just what happened when Wanda showed up in Agnes's basement, and Agnes takes her on a journey of her memories to try to figure out what's up. And what we find out is that Agnes was attracted to Wanda's magic powers and came here to investigate her. And this is her final investigation to figure out how she became who she is and what her powers are. And at the very end of the episode, we get, for some, a significant moment where, for the first time, Wanda is referred to as Scarlet Witch.
Naim, what did you think of this?
I've been loving it so far. I loved all the sitcom stuff. I do want to real quick mention last episode's happy endings reference, which is fantastic because I love happy endings and not enough people watch that show, which is the title sequence was happy endings inspired. It's strange. This is the episode where the people who really hated the sitcom stuff could finally spread their wings. I don't get that because I love the sitcom stuff, but this was also really great. We got to go back and sort of learn about some of the backstory of even before the show, like way early, pre Age of Ultron Wanda stuff. Also with this shot we're seeing right now with Agatha from the 1600s because she's a witch who's 400 years old.
That was a nice twist where they put her up on the stake and they say, "Are you a witch?" And she's like, "Yeah. So what?" And they're like, "Yeah, but did you steal our witch stuff and disobey the witch's code?" Because if you're a witch,
you have to follow the witch rules.
Right, exactly. I rather like that.
Yeah, and it was fun to see sort of. First of all, listen, there was a Twitter discourse about the line that was a good line where what is grief but love persevering.
It actually is. That's really good writing.
It's a good line.
In that moment, as somebody
I know why people were annoyed and whatever, but it's a good piece of dialogue.
It really was. It was.
Wait,
good
why
writing.
are people annoyed at that line?
It's Twitter.
It's a little schlocky. It's a little it's a very good line about a robot.
So, this is a delicate.
I can see if you're uncomfortable with feelings, why you want to mark that line.
All parties can be correct. Bryce, you are 100% right. It is a schlocky line, but it rings different. As longtime listeners know, I went through some loss over the last few months, and it really. Sometimes schlock says in very few words a lot of feelings, and that's what I felt during that moment. I thought it was pretty
totally.
Honestly, it feels a little schlocky, partially because it seems like it came from something else, but it didn't. It seems like something that's just been around forever. It
sounds like it came from a fortune cookie, is what it sounds like.
Kind of a little bit, maybe a little bit, yeah.
And I think part of it is just it's a little schlocky, and it kind of comes after we just spent 30 minutes with a 500-year-old witch going through all the sitcom stuff. It's
heartfelt.
I'm not saying that I completely subscribe to it, but the Marvel stuff, hands distance away, hands length away.
Listen, Brian's being nice and saying everybody can be right, and he's not wrong.
Yeah.
But also, even if you think that line's schlocky, that line's right.
Yes. Also, There's no such thing as a bad episode of WandaVision, but there is, by definition, there does have to be a least good episode of WandaVision. I'm pretty sure this is the least good episode of WandaVision.
For me,
yet.
it was too, and that's not to say I hated it. Like, you know, you have to hasten to be like, it's not black and white, it's shades of gray. I liked this the least because I
black and white
really
was the first
liked
2 episodes.
Yeah, busted.
I really liked the TV show Illusion stuff. I was going to get tired of it, and I really liked how they slowly doled it out and made it be part of the plot as we got to see more and more what was happening. And I was a little disappointed that we got nothing in this. Maybe if they had tried to do something, and maybe they even did when they were writing it, they're like, yeah, it just doesn't work. If we want to get the Marvel movie magic into this, which is what they were doing, we just have to go straight exposition. That said, because it was straight exposition, I liked everything I learned, or I liked learning it anyway. But I didn't enjoy the episode as much because it didn't have that magic twist that all the other episodes did.
At a visceral level, I know that one of the things I love the most about WandaVision is the beautiful, irony is not the right word, the harmony of the fact that this is a show that celebrates families gathering together around the magic box for wonderful story time. And in fact, in this episode, we see a family gathering around the magic box for wonderful classic storytelling. And in my life, it's the one show that everybody in the house gathers for. Even my 8-year-old who was terrified by the witch stuff and, you know, would hide her eyes and all that stuff, we gather around the magic box. So it's not lost on me that there's some real alchemy, some real magic happening on all this. However, I read one review that had, I think, a pretty good parallel, talking about there are some people who, in any kind of loot gathering video game, they pick up the thing, and then they read those 75 paragraphs about where the thing came from, and they're like, oh my God, this is revolutionary. This changes everything, because now I read that this, you know, thing came from this dude who had 75 skulls or whatever. I'm not one of those people. I tend to value the brevity of the MCU. This displayed a uniquely present lack of brevity. This was a lot.
So I definitely agree with that. Yeah. I also don't generally like here's the big history of all this. Like, you know, for example, you probably know about the Star Wars Machete cut, which cuts out episode 1 because it's just,
nothing
it just
but
tells
one
you
of those
stuff
75 paragraph dumps.
Exactly. However, in this specific moment, maybe it's just specific to me because I am also an immigrant to the United States who watches a lot of sitcoms and learned how to interact with people from watching sitcoms, realizing that that's exactly why Wanda did all this stuff with sitcoms. Sort of, it spoke to me maybe in a different way than it might speak to other people.
Okay, hold on. This is where we do some horse trading. As a grieving brother, then I will allow you the poignance of the Malcolm in the Middle references.
Sure.
I did like that scene where the dad brings home the briefcase full of DVDs and the mom looks at him like, what are you doing? He's like, don't worry, I'm going to sell these tomorrow. But he's making his daughter happy by letting her watch stuff. I was a little confused why he went through all that when he knew she was just going to pick the box set that was already like hidden behind the rug.
I didn't even mind that so much. I feel like we needed that pause moment where you could look at all of the DVDs and directly see the checkbox. Again, this was nothing but a bunch of checkboxes. Mm-hmm. All you guys who had this theory, checkbox, yes. All you guys who are wondering what our influences were, checkbox, yes. Did we do this on purpose? Checkbox, yes. Unfortunately, it made for a there are no bad episodes of WandaVision. It made for the least awesome episode of WandaVision yet.
I don't know. I would have just put one Dick Van Dyke double DVD in the suitcase and had her pick that, and then the brother complained like, but we have all these ones we haven't seen before.
No. I would have gone the opposite way. I would have said, and I got it for only $17.95 at this website. Hold it up to camera long enough to scan the QR code, and then
Right. Also, the implication that Pietro was created by Agnes has me curious. Because
I feel like the implication is that because she said she can't create, and
Right.
that she couldn't do necromancy because he's on another continent.
Right.
So it's somebody.
So is
it's
that
actually
why
not.
it's alt universe Pietro? Because all she had left as an option was to pull one in from another universe.
I mean, that is a theory that I have read, that she could pull someone in from another universe a lot more easily than she could go to another continent and do necromancy, because Xavier School's in New York, right? He's right there anyway.
Right.
And then she is controlling him, which makes sense. But
I read her as closing the loop on like, that dude totally fake, not actually MCU, but a good press release about our relationship with that world, and maybe something like that will show up again.
I could see that too. Like I'm actually curious, what the period on that sentence is going to be.
So like certainly either because he displays super speed, so either Agatha can just give people super speed, or he already had super speed of some sort and she just plucked a dude who had super speed. Which the first one's probably what's true.
He's also still around because he shows up next to Monica Rambeau in the post-credit
in the previous
scene.
episode, yeah.
So now we get into, I don't want to get too far in the weeds. I don't want to get too comic booky on this, but I feel like we're never going to have a better opportunity than right now with Kuhan. Okay, so this version of Vision that we see was created whole cloth out of chaos magic, which is not necessarily an Infinity Stone thing. So we're seeing a slightly reduced, non-Mind Stone powered version of Vision, but somebody leeches a little bit of the chaos magic from Wanda, who we can now call the Scarlet Witch, in order to reactivate and fuel the corpse of Vision, which they claimed she stole, but it turns out she never stole, and in fact was manipulated into freaking out in order to use her crazy magic. And now they're leeching off a bit of it because this person who works at Sword, who maybe is a good organization, but this is a bad person, now has a weapon that I assume is going to result on a Vision on Vision battle. I swear, if you've never seen this show, everything I said, those things make sense.
Yeah. I was like, yeah.
Okay.
What? Is there a question in this?
All right. And we're done.
So that's
white is accurate. Yeah, that sounds
that's
right.
White Vision, right, from the comic books.
Right.
Yeah. All right. And
I wouldn't
we have
be shocked if there's some sort of scene where they sort of fuse Dragon Ball Z style and becomes the regular Vision.
I would assume like they have established, I think pretty clearly, even if you're not somebody who reads the think pieces, that these are two instances of Vision that are fueled by the same energy. So I suppose we basically assume they're equally powerful. Only
the Vision in the Hex can't leave the Hex, right? Because he's
right.
It seems that the people who are whole cloth creations of Wanda can't leave the Hex, whereas the one on the outside is the original vibranium body of Vision from Age of Ultron.
You know what's interesting is I always figured the can't leave the Hex was because they didn't have Wanda's permission to leave. So I've always assumed that once they're created, she could just go wherever you want.
Well, Brian, it was Agatha all along.
Okay. Well,
but the Hex Vision was coming apart as he literally could not,
because he didn't have permission to violate Wanda's construct.
Or Agatha's.
Agatha just tricked Wanda into doing her Wanda thing. This all feels like Wanda's
construct.
Yeah.
Agatha's just in there pulling strings.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the side of like, if they weren't allowed to leave, he'd just bounce off the wall, not slowly disintegrate. So I think he doesn't exist outside of the construct.
Oh, you know what? All of a sudden I'm realizing that would be a good way to tell a story, is to have him fight and have him die a third time. God, I'm so tired of him dying.
You're not wrong. It's that, but like it seems that White Vision will become Good Vision, and then they can keep Paul Bettany around because
that's interesting. So like they like he injects his like I could possess this.
He's like, the only way I can leave is if I have a body, and Wanda's like, yes, I'm sorry, and then he's like, great, here's one, and then
all right, yeah, I'm down for that. I mean, it worked for a certain other show whose title I won't say on Paramount Plus.
Oh, The Stand. I mean,
no. Yes, maybe. I won't say.
He wasn't gonna say. Anyway, as much as I didn't love the breath, the deep breath of like, let's take a break from WandaVision, I did like lots of the revelations, even if I didn't love the way they were made. And I really liked that we had an unreliable narrator on what Wanda did, even though before we had video evidence. Here she is doing it. Now we have Wanda's actual recollection that shows like, that video evidence was misleading because here's what she really did. And she didn't steal Vision. And she went to New Jersey because that's where they were going to settle down. And then her grief just poured out and she reconstructed what was kind of a shabby town into being something nicer. So it all makes sense.
That was a couple nice moments there too, is of like, why are they in Westview? It was sort of a yes, it's answering a question, but like emotionally answering that question. Like you definitely feel like, oh my God, like this is a major revelation in a very like well told way. And then also the moment where she creates Vision whole cloth, like that was like, I legitimately was like, wait, what? Wait, she just made him out of like, wait, what? Like that.
Well, and I think, man, it was a real close call for me as a viewer, whether or not that was too much or a validation of just how powerful she is. And what I had to remind myself is one of the beauties about the comic books in the Marvel universe is that there was constantly overlap, but there was sort of like a rubber band snapping back to each universe's own rules. Like the rules got a little bit flubbery when there was a crossover, but then they snap back. And in Scarlet Witch's story, she's the most powerful being that there is, right? So we're in Scarlet Witch's universe, and you have to forget about Captain America, you have to forget about Iron Man, you have to forget about Infinity Stones, you have to forget about, and they do a good job of massaging you to, oh wait, you're very, very powerful enough to build yourself a cocoon and bring back your husband from the dead. And I'm buying that, and I'm in.
I think we're going to get more explanation on Vision too, because Vision, unlike other people in the town, has self-awareness,
right,
and can knock people out of Scarlet Witch's control, even though he's not quote unquote real.
And of course, all they have to do is say, well, everyone else, you just took over their mind. But Vision doesn't exist in this world, so you borrowed Vision from a nearby dimension. It's almost like your Vision, but so close you'll never see the difference. Anyway, it's pretty much
a
Vision.
multiverse of madness.
Exactly.
Well,
that's where I think we're headed.
If they borrowed Vision from a nearby universe, he'd be able to leave the hex.
Not without her permission. I don't know.
Well,
unless we go back to your
maybe she
permission,
borrowed
okay.
the consciousness of a Vision from another universe, but not the body.
Or maybe he's an
or
exact representation of how she remembered him.
I think that's what it is.
Something
because
like
also
that.
that's why he doesn't remember anything before Westview either, right? Like she remembers Vision as a good person, android, robot, and so like that is what he is. He's still purely good and wants to do nothing but good.
And in fact,
that's why he is
possibly even more good, because he has fewer memories of serving Tony Stark as a butler and more memories of loving Wanda and being an awesome Avenger.
Exactly. Well, he has no memories of being awesome an Avenger. He only has memories of loving Wanda. That's all he knows, is that he is married to Wanda and he loves Wanda. He doesn't remember anything before Westview.
One quick button on this. There's nothing I love more than when a villain says something and I think, ooh, he does have a good point. There's nothing better than that move. And the villain saying, hey, we can't take $1 billion of the most advanced weaponry on Earth and bury it in the ground. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that is a good point. You can't do that.
But you can give her a pinky or something. You can give her a toe.
I agree. They could have given her something. Like symbolically
give her something.
Yeah.
They got to use tin and something on that one.
There would be a
guy.
solution to that if you didn't want to use it. So, yeah. Which is why it's a brilliant line, because it's like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah. Any other thoughts on WandaVision?
Can I share my hot take that got some people mad at me in Discord when this episode came out?
Why did we not lead with this?
I think the ending to this episode is bad.
Okay, look, I think the whole episode is,
Doesn't feel like
first
a
of all,
hot
there's
take.
no such thing as bad. There's only
explain
the
more.
least good.
Specifically, I think it is not a good button. If this wasn't Marvel and this wasn't written on top of all of the Marvel stuff and all the comic book stuff, you would not be able to end an episode saying, "It's your now I'm coming for you, Scarlet Witch." I don't know. It like the thing that frustrates me with this show is like how much of this show has to live on outside of the show.
Wait, you're not upset with the White Vision bit. You're upset with Agnes calling her Scarlet Witch.
Yes,
And also,
specifically that, not the after credit scene, but also two post credit scenes that are also not the last episode.
But you're cool with the Addams Family parody. It was Agatha all along.
That was great.
No,
that leads into my problem. I didn't like that what episode was that? 4 or 5? I didn't like that pretty much from day one. Everyone said, "Oh yeah, it's Agnes is going to be Agatha Harkness." Duh. And like it's by the grace of God that bit was like this fun, cute, catchy song, because it would be very bad. It would be a very bad experience to be like the show being like, I'm actually Agatha Harkness, a thing that everyone knows already, which is like the Scarlet Witch thing, except everyone already knows it. That's a legal thing. You can't end your episode by telling me we figured out a legal thing. We're calling her Scarlet Witch.
If you didn't know that was a legal thing, it wouldn't have bothered you. So you are causing your own problem by bringing in outside information that you claim to be against.
It's even worse if you don't know about it. It's even worse if you don't know what Scarlet Witch is, because what that doesn't mean anything.
I disagree that it's even worse in any way, but it is kind of like a cheese. Like it's a big like pop for people who are like, yes, she's the Scarlet Witch. You finally said it. But like, I agree, it is pretty corny.
Theoretically,
whereas doing the Agatha thing, like you're doing the song, you can take the sort of corny thing, but also like
there's a plot entertainment there.
Theoretically, someone who's a fan of
and not know anything.
Theoretically, someone who's a fan of only the Marvel Cinematic Universe always wondered why Wanda didn't have a name. And this is the moment where her superhero name got coined, and it's a big deal and it's fun.
Which, by the way, it also comes up in the show earlier, right? So, like, if you were paying attention earlier, like, somebody specifically asked, like, just Wanda? She doesn't have, like, a superhero name or a cape or something? It's like, nope, she's just Wanda. And then later on, you know, that line pays off. Again, if you're somebody who's not a comic book person and you just watch these things, that does pay that off.
I can ask my kids how they read it, but I'm almost certain that they have no idea that she was ever called the Scarlet Witch. They didn't care about that moment. Outside of that, what that did is imagine instead of saying the Scarlet Witch, she had said, "You must be the chosen one," whatever the prophecy is. You must be an important person. Like, yeah, that's how it read, I think, to anybody who didn't know.
It was just, it felt like, you know, it was kind of some of my issues. I don't know if you remember this with the end of Warrior Nun, kind of ending that season right before a big battle is supposed to happen.
I'm still okay with that, but that's fine.
And I just can't. To me, if this wasn't Marvel, if this was anything else, you make your own superhero movie, make it a different genre, whatever, that wouldn't be a good way to end an episode. I don't think we would accept it being like the big climax is you have a name that everybody knows.
I believe what we're having is called a violent agreement.
This is why people hate it.
I believe we're violently agreeing with each other.
No, I actually disagree with Bryce, but also it's a matter of flavor and taste. So, you know, Bryce doesn't like cilantro, and I do right there. That's really all it means.
But are we agreed this is, again, there are no bad episodes, the least good episode of WandaVision?
It's certainly my least favorite of the season so far.
You know what? I think, because I watched the last one twice, and the first time I was like, oh, this is so great. And the second time I was like, well, now that I already get all the things that they're referencing, like, oh, it's not fun to watch the pops, it's no longer all that great. It's just,
you know what?
Like
that's how somebody talks when they haven't watched this week's episode a second time. I dare you to watch this episode a second time.
I did not watch this week's episode a second time, so I'm going to go back and watch it. I watched this one
twice, and this is the first time watching the second time through. I was like, not riveted.
So that's where I was on episode 7. The second time through, I was like, yeah, I like this a lot more the first time. And my friend Brandon had said that the first time through, he's like, this was probably the worst episode so far. And I was like, no, it was great. And then I watched it again. And I was like, was it great? So maybe that'll happen with this episode when I watch it a second time.
Remember how Wanda is like a boring character and
At least good.
She's not boring.
Okay,
She's a lot less boring than this one.
Now I'm just poking at everybody.
But before we move on and I go, I find it really interesting that 5-6 years ago when Wanda was introduced, like her power set was just she makes glowing things and can make things move, because you can't really at the time it was a lot harder to introduce Wanda's comic book power set into the MCU. And now they're talking about chaos magic and she's creating Vision out of thin air. And it's like, oh, this is now they actually did manage to introduce the comic book power set of Wanda, which is very overpowered and pretty crazy to this universe that a lot of people are watching and fully most people are fully on board with how Wanda's powers work. And that's, I guess it's a testament to how just the MCU is writing.
Yeah, which is consistent with the comic book writing, and I, to be honest, I think that from Disney's perspective, they cannot wait to get into the multiverse, because then they have one answer for every nerd complaint. Multiverse, right, bro. Different universes. We didn't say which universe this was. Multiverse. In this one, Doctor Strange is the most powerful. Oh, psych! In this one, the Beyonder exists. Oh, psych!
If that means that some of these shows can come out and the people who commentate on them don't just say immediately, here's what's going to happen and here's who the bad guy is every time. If there can actually be some surprise and difference from comic book canon, I think that would be great, because this is a mystery show. This is a mystery show that was spoiled on day one. This is a mystery show that was spoiled on day one. Sorry, everybody. I'm not mad. You're mad.
I don't watch trailers. I don't really think pieces. I see what I see on Twitter.
IamKuhan.com is where you want to go to get more of Naim's incredible stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, man. You were fantastic. This was great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will come on anytime. Give me a holler. I've got an email in my inbox from Tom right now. So
done.
That is WandaVision season 1, episode 8. And yeah, I did remember to email you back on that simply because you're on the show today. But I'm glad.
Like 3 months. I meant to email you back at some point. I was like, it's been a long time. Oh no. Yeah,
thanks, man. All right. Let's talk about Raised by Wolves, episodes 1 and 2 of season 1. Some ground rules here for those watching along with us. Brian and Bryce have seen it before and are rewatching, and I'm watching for the first time. And I have to say, y'all, I've been looking forward to watching this. It wasn't like something I was dreading. I was just trying to find time, and this was a good excuse to make me watch it. And I really enjoyed it. I burned right through those 2 episodes without looking back.
To further clarify, I almost started watching episode 3. I had previously only seen episodes 1 and 2. Now
you hadn't even seen.
I didn't realize. I thought you watched all the way through.
Anything past episode 2.
I've seen the whole season, right, but I am going ahead and just watching along with everyone so that I'm on the same page and not speaking out of turn.
So
now, Bryce, you've mentioned before that each episode feels like an entire series, and I definitely felt that about episode 1. Not quite as much about episode 2, but you're absolutely right that a lot happens, and episode 1 does feel like a movie. It feels like an entire arc right there.
Episode 1 especially. More so than the rest, I'd say. I think it's strongest in episode 1, but they cover a lot of ground really quickly.
Maybe because so much more happens in episode 1 than episode 2, we can kind of go in reverse order, because one of the curious things that happened to me was I watched both of those first 2 episodes. I was blown away by how much content was fit into so little amount of time. I was majorly surprised when it came time to review them, to talk about them now, how major plot points in episode 2, again, we're discussing both, so everything's fair game. I had all the memories of 2 people impersonate people, get on the ark, they have their faces reconstructed. I had memories of kids were stolen, mom tries to convert them to atheism, which is a weird phrase to say. Dude from the Ark gets rescued by people at the Ark. No memory whatsoever of the fact that she brings father back to life. And it was so weird to me that I didn't remember that I called Bonnie and just sort of nibbled around the like, hey, man, maybe episode 2. Maybe it's just me. It was kind of crazy. I don't remember. Like, do you remember that they brought father back to life? And she goes, they did? I thought it was with the kids and all that stuff.
You don't remember that they brought him back to life, or you don't remember him dying?
No, I definitely remember him dying. That's a major part of episode 1.
And you just thought he stayed dead?
Yes.
Because they really don't show his corpse after he gets impaled. They don't show it again until he is revived in episode 2 near the end.
And also watching episode 2, because once I confirmed that both me and Bonnie had forgotten, I was like, why is that? And I became dialed in on it. Really, all he does is serve to be a voice of doubt to Mother for the remainder of the episode. Like, all he does is say, are you sure you want to do that? For the remainder. So it makes sense that I would forget. And also,
he's the check for the child. The child trusts father to keep the eyes out of her hands.
Right.
And father fails in that. And so he was the security for the kid, and the kid now realizes that father isn't trustworthy either.
So also, and this is after 2 viewings, watching the second episode, there's definitely a moment she says flat out, oh yeah, I took out my eyes because I don't know why I become super powerful, but it has something to do with my eyes are the MacGuffin that causes me to become super powerful. So I took them out. Was that made apparent in episode 1 at all? Because I only know that fact because upon my second viewing of episode 2, it was flatly stated and I somehow missed it the first time around or whatever.
I don't know that comes across in episode 1, but that's definitely a part of episode 2, right? You see it in the Boston scene, the flashback scene, where the 2 atheists kind of face plastic surgery people, like, you know, one of the mothers or the necromancers that they name her, like, is going around and they're like, you know, visors down, right? There's a whole thing where she's telling Campion in episode 1, I think, to like look away while she's don't
look at me. She does that in episode 2 with the girl who turns out to be pregnant.
And she goes and sees the kids with the blindfold on as well.
Correct. Although the blindfold, it wasn't clear to me. I guess she was shielding her eyes from their damaging mojo. Yeah, I guess they don't really explain it in episode 1, but then they flat out state it in episode 2, which is not perfect storytelling. But I'll accept it.
Why is that bothersome to you? It didn't bother me a bit.
Because in general, if you have to explain a rule of the universe, then there probably could have existed a way to show that instead of telling it. But outside of that, now we get back to episode 1.
So it wasn't about being in episode 1 or episode 2. It was about they told instead of showed.
Correct. And in that telling, I didn't hold on to that fact.
Even though the eyes
took months later, I had to be literally verbally reminded of it by the main character.
Seems like a small point. Like it didn't even bug me, although you're technically correct.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're a functional tool, right? I mean, we get to a point where like, okay, well, I've taken the eyes out and not, I don't know. Well, I would feel weird.
I read it as she suddenly realized she had these powers. She used them and then was like, oh crap. I can't keep these eyes in and use those powers, so I better take them out. And then somebody's like, why'd you take your eyes out? She's like, oh, because of this.
By the way, last point on episode 2 before we go back to the brilliant masterpiece that is episode 1. I liked sort of the abusive housewife thing of like, oh, sweetheart, I only killed you because you were at fault. He's like, oh, I guess I was. Yeah, I guess
I'm sorry you're mad I killed you.
Exactly. It's like you're the one that deviated from the programming. He's like, I guess so, man.
They have a really good dynamic between those two characters. I think it's really illustrative in the beginning of episode 1, where like they're very calmly escaping the ship and trying to, you know, salvage the embryos and all you know, as much as they can. And he's telling dad jokes the entire time. And they have a very interesting, very pragmatic relationship for two characters who are called mother and father.
It did take me until the second viewing that I appreciated. Oh, they're dad jokes. I get it now. but I do love the fact that clearly they designed these two androids with the intention of them, you know, kind of adopting the roles. And, you know, that moment that Campion in episode 2 says to Mother, hey, you can stop this. Like, what do you mean? Like all this facial expression, I know it's all fake. And like there's sort of I don't think that really gets resolved in that moment. I think there's some plot diversion, but I do love the idea that they bake in dadness into dad and momness into mom.
Well, and the other thing that I'm curious about is father seems like he was purpose built for this. Mother seems like she was repurposed, very obviously, from something else.
So let's go back to episode 1. Episode 1 is a masterpiece, but the moment you're talking about, Tom, is the moment where the soldiers, well, I'll call them crusaders, believers in soul or whatever, like they flat out say, yeah, she seems like a standard so-and-so unit, shouldn't be too difficult to take out. And then we find out, no, she's something special.
No, she is going to very specifically wipe out everybody that she can find.
And we've already had indications throughout episode 1 that something was different. Like she's able to keep Campion alive in a way that father's like, but that's not protocol. She has the dreams about flying. So you already know like, oh, wait a minute, something else is going on with her. And of course, she acts very differently from father about things, right up until the point where she kills him. Right. So I already knew she was different, but I didn't know why until episode 2, when it was revealed that she's a necromancer and therefore really a battle droid, so to speak.
Right.
That has been like, probably because everything was falling apart, they like hastily reprogrammed her to be a mother.
Right.
And tried to hide her origins.
So she has conflicting programs running at the same time that are manifesting. So that calls into doubt. In episode 1, it is established per the rules of storytelling that she is broken, but by the end of episode 2, we're convinced, well, no, maybe she just is running conflicting programs.
Yeah, I was imagining it as they overwrote her programming, but they didn't delete the old programming, and somehow some subroutines that they thought would never get reactivated get reactivated.
Yeah. Another thing that and again, in retrospect, it's dumb. But when watching episode 2, what I took from the opening sequence is these two people, or at least one of the two people that we know, didn't belong on the Ark. It didn't occur to me to do the reductionist sort of, well, there's only 2 factions that are fighting. So it never occurred to me the first time I watched it that, well, if he's not a crusader, he must be an atheist or whatever. So the idea that and it is sufficiently told, and it's on me that I missed it. But like they're studying the Bible, and they're like, "Hey man, I'm going to ask you this question. You better know the answer," and it's fairly clear like these are non-believers that are going undercover as believers. Which I guess there's a lot in episode 2 that overshadowed it after 4 or 5 months of memories.
They definitely leave open the idea that there's multiple faiths, because when they arrive at the outpost, the first thing they say is, "What is your faith?" And she says, "We're not believers," which implies that maybe there are other faiths.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which could be the people who steal the identities just weren't from the right faction and needed to know what the dogmatic answers were for the crusaders they were joining.
Yeah. That would be more nuanced than I got from the second viewing of it. But back to episode 1, can we just talk about like how dense episode 1 is? It might be one of the greatest pilot episodes I've seen since Knight Rider.
Wow.
Take that.
I was going to say the original BSG, but you may be right. Yeah.
All right. Original BSG counts 30, whether you count the miniseries or 33, but yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I was blown away by the construction of the world that we didn't see, the construction of the world they alluded to, and why they were there, and how they're going to raise these children to repopulate. The heartbreak that they didn't dwell on, but still delivered a good punch of losing all of these children, and that Campion, the one who probably wasn't going to survive if they'd followed protocol, is the only one who survives in the end. And father's very logical decision of like, there's only one way to save you. We got to give you to the people who are here, because we obviously can't keep people alive. Look at our track record. And mother overriding that, and just all the detail with the farming and the instructions and the raising of the kids. It's just thick. It's a thick episode.
And not only that, it's unrelenting in that if you don't pick up on it on your own, then that's on you. Like they give you a couple of like, hey, by the way, whatever these holes are, they got warm air coming out of it. That'll matter next episode. Or hey, these spiral formations, that's a very efficient way to grow crops. And it's only in the second episode that there's a casual, on my second viewing of the second episode, they casually mention that the ground is undernourished, so they can only grow crops on where the deceased bodies of serpents or whatever they call them.
Serpents, yeah.
Were spun around. Aha! So I'm not the only one. It took me my second viewing.
I was just more sure, like, damn, they got a lot of bones.
Yeah,
that's right. They got bones.
The
going
idea
on.
was that the creatures that lived, the giant creatures, died, and that's the only fertile area, which is why they're.
I kept
growing
waiting
in
for the
spirals.
serpents to come back out of the ground too. So
Not looking at Bryce.
yeah, I know. I have to cover that window.
I did like. Oh, now I'm back to episode 2 because I just.
You could talk about both episodes.
Well, that was kind of a fascinating moment. How unspoken the fact that the one girl is pregnant was, and how they let you lag behind and then catch up to understand what it meant. Like she's in the middle of telling an atheist parable and then says, "Hold on, you come with me." And then she walks off. And then it's like, so anyway, you're going to live here now. You don't have to work or anything. And you're like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And then because the girl knows, she's like, wasn't my choice, by the way. And I'm like, wait, what wasn't your choice? And it's only like 3 or 4 lines of dialogue in that you realize, oh, while she was in hibernation, somebody inseminated her. Like, wow, that's a heavy trip. That's something I really dig about the show is how unrelenting the pace is.
I think the presentation of that scene is also just really good, right? That like them being in the plastic dome.
In sort of a womb-like area.
Well, and Mother is holding, this glowing ball, and it's interesting because, it's lighting the girl in a very even way, but there's a shot where you can see kind of a close-up of Mother's face, and for the the girl on her solo, she's being kind of well evenly lit, and Mother, the light is right under her, and it's almost like a campfire, sort of spooky, like ooh.
Yeah, I did notice that in a previous shot that they made sure it's a flickering light. Like, oh, what a clever proxy for campfire light.
Yeah, that's a very powerful scene. I feel like I can't talk too much.
Okay.
Because,
Tom, what are your standout thoughts about episode?
Oh, I've given them. I was going to ask if there's anything else to add on this. Because
how about that brutal scream murder of an entire city?
that was so cool. That was so cool.
that was something.
Yeah, well, and you mean her ability to scream murder a ship as well as a city?
Or at least scream murder enough of the crew that she could cause the ship to crash itself and steal.
Because they're also scream murdering in the flashback on the planet. So when you said city, I thought you meant that. But
sorry, no. I'm thinking of the arc as an entire city in space.
Scream murdering is a very interesting device, and does seem to be directable. You can scream murder one person without scream murdering the person next to them.
It is interesting because there's a lot of ways that you could have depicted that. And some of the ways would leave it somewhat ambiguous whether or not somebody could survive a scream attack. Like it was as though they said, we don't want a single viewer to be confused about whether or not a scream attack is the end of the story. So we're just going to liquefy things left and right.
But it's directional, right? I can target Bryce
and
leave Brian sitting there. Or vice versa.
Right.
Well, and they make a point at the very end of the second episode when she obliterates the creatures at night, where Father's like, well, I'd study them if you left anything for me to study.
But there ain't. No.
Do you, Tom, you've read a lot more science fiction than I have. So there may be some territory here that for you sounds like an echo of something that you've experienced before. Is there anything in particular that you're hoping it will be or won't be or at this point?
I don't understand the question. What will be or won't be?
The show.
You are more literate in the world of science fiction, so I don't know which parts of this show that we're watching have ever been explored in any sci-fi before this show. To me, everything I'm seeing is very, very
you're
fresh.
giving me way too much credit. I'm enjoying this world. I like the Raised by Wolves analog with the androids. I thought it was, as I've said before, I thought it was an incredible presentation of what the plan was for that sect, how that sect was probably not in good shape when they sent people off. And I'm very interested to find out, what the clash is going to be in the next episode between Mother and the remaining Crusader who's not a Crusader. We don't know if he's from another sect or if he's actually an atheist, but he is obviously the conflict that's coming. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think the guy you're talking about, who I don't think we've been given a name yet, I think of him as kind of the Sawyer of the group, where he's there, and he certainly is being treated as one of them, but
is he Caleb?
Unknown.
Is that his name? Yeah, because they have the fake names that they stole.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know.
I think he's Caleb.
I like the actor. I thought he was fantastic, especially in that episode 1 scene where all the Crusaders were doing the Crusader thing of like, anyway, we're just going to take whatever we want. And he was the one who just kept jumping in like, or let's say we just be cool and sleep for a night.
At first, it seems like the Crusaders, because they've been on this long journey, maybe they're not all as dogmatic as the others, and that just happens. But then later you find out like, oh, he's just not one of them.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on Raised by Wolves?
Nope. Digging it.
That is Raised by Wolves, episode 1 and 2. Let's talk Hannibal season finale, season 1, episode 13.
Dude, what's up with so many good shows this week?
This is a great episode. Oh my God, this is so good.
This makes the series, right?
Yeah.
This is the series. We had 12 prequels to kind of set us up for the series called Hannibal, and now we know what that series is about.
It's like the pitch went, okay, what if somebody was in jail, framed by Hannibal Lecter, who has encephalitis and his brain is disintegrating, but he's figured out who Hannibal Lecter is and wants to convince the world from inside a prison of both disbelief and an actual prison of the threat Hannibal Lecter presents. And then somebody says
he's a criminal genius that they will want to continue to consult because he's so good at what he did.
Wait, so you're saying it's almost as though he performs the same function as Hannibal Lecter does in the Silence of the Lamb movie, but is a good guy?
Jodie Foster is Mads Mikkelsen.
Dude,
who is Hannibal?
Yes. I like that framing of we just watched 12 prequels leading up to the first episode of the series.
Yeah. Because man, I do not disagree. I'm thoroughly convinced that my hopes that Dr. Du Maurier was imaginary are not true, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm still interested on what's going on with Dr. Du Maurier, because there obviously is something with Hannibal in her past, and she alludes to it again in their one-on-one session. She obviously knows who Hannibal really is and what he's up to. And has her own ethical line about, what she will reveal and what she won't, but is trying to steer him a little bit in this episode and not very successfully, I don't think.
I do like, I agree with you. At this point, I'm not believing she's like a split figment of somebody's imagination, but I will say, wonderful in a world where everything can be so mushy, where we don't know when we're dreaming, we don't know when we're awake necessarily. The way they very concretely explain, you see Will realize, oh, wait, I've been obsessed with this one murder. They're saying I did 4? No, that doesn't track. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
The only way that would work is if...
Dun,
and
dun,
it,
dun.
right, and it's like he knows. He knows exactly where he is. He knows exactly... He may not know about his brain disease yet, because my guess is they're going to have to do... Or I guess, no, they did do it.
They learn about it.
Yeah,
I don't know that they tell him Maybe.
Let's assume he does. But he believes himself. That's the important thing. And he knows that before moment X, he trusts everything he remembers. And these other murders happened before moment X. So therefore, there's only one way this all goes down.
Well, and we've been convinced over 12 prequels that Will has an uncanny ability to get into the mind of a killer and determine what he did. And even though we don't see the pendulum this time, I was like, oh, he's putting himself in the position of, okay, well, if Hannibal did it, oh, yep, it all fits, click.
Mm-hmm. All of that tracks.
And it's the perfect reversal, right? Because we've seen Jack kind of get already had Will tell him that, like, oh no, the copycat killer is like all the same person. Like he's already spent up coupons, like trying to convince him, oh, well, actually it might be this thing. And being caught with Hannibal at the worst possible time, when everyone believes that Will is the killer and he's got a gunpoint. I mean, it's just great. It's great. Like, it's not just like narratively that it all works out, but it really does feel like this is Hannibal's design, that this is how everything wored out.
It also
and the only one who could foil Hannibal is Will at this point.
Yes.
And now he's behind bars.
I hadn't really thought about the trick that it pulled, Tom, of being a prequel and the story really beginning. Like you could just hear, this is a good show, and you could start on episode 2, season 1, and I'm fairly certain you will know everything that you need to know, in that there's an innocent man with a brain disease who is in prison being blamed for a bunch of killings that Hannibal Lecter performed, and he's figured out that Hannibal Lecter is the one that did it. That's all you need to know going into season 2. What a remarkable feat. How rarely do we get to see that out of the first season of anything?
I mean, and you're richer for seeing the other episodes, right? You get a deeper understanding, but yeah. The other storyline that I'm curious about, I may be reading too much into it or not, is Beverly Katz. Beverly Katz has been somewhat fascinated with Will, not in the same way as Dr. Bloom, obviously, but in a sort of like, you're weird, you're interesting. And if every other episode, she kind of comes up to Will with this smirk on her face and it talks to him a little like,
this is one of the FBI forensic folks. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She's played by Hettian Park. And in this last episode, she looks disappointed. She's like, man, like something doesn't fit here.
Right.
What, tell me what's really going on. And they have that conversation and she doesn't seem satisfied. So I feel like she might be one of our wild cards going into season 2.
She might be our sleeper hero that comes in and saves the day and has the epiphany or whatever. Yeah.
Isn't it great that we don't see Abigail's body ever?
Oh yeah.
We don't know she's dead.
Oh no.
We don't know she's dead. We don't know how she died at all.
At this point, as of right now, if I'm going to place an even money bet, she cut off her ear and she's just running around without an ear.
Oh, right, the ear.
Because Hannibal talked her into it.
That's the only evidence that happened.
Cut off your ear.
Right, exactly. And he never said he was going to kill her. He said he couldn't take care of you this life. Like, and you're like, here's your new life. Here's all your papers.
There was a lot of blood because Will did do kind of some analysis of the blood.
He did like, that's arterial spray. That's this, that, and the other. But again, we've established Hannibal Lecter as a supervillain that could fake all of that. There's not a single thing we heard that I wouldn't believe Hannibal Lecter wouldn't be able to fake.
It seems very likely she's dead.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
Because you would think, assuming Will didn't do it and that she did die when it seems like she would have died, wouldn't he have been on an airplane if it was very clear and that she was dead and she was?
But it's close enough.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. It's going to be. They're going to find a way to complicate it, because I think if it was simple, like she died when it looked like she was going to die, and he was on a plane, however many hours.
Also, if she is alive and they discover that, then she's a weakness in Hannibal's story.
Oh yeah. Oh no. She is. I guarantee you, living under an assumed name in a third world country or something.
What?
Minus 1 ear right now.
She's Abigail dead. One ear.
Yep.
In Brazil.
But may I bring up the fact that we've talked about this before in the series. This series has a unique and remarkable ability. We are talking about this with full on like rules that we totally believe as if it is a superhero, a DCU or an MCU story, where it's like, well, you can't do that because that would violate, Superman can't do that per the rules. Like, we've figured out, they've done such a good job of consistently laying out the cans and cannots of certain characters that we're left with this very interestingly set up chessboard. And I don't feel like at any point did they rely on sloppy writing or Deus Ex Machinas in order to throw in or anything like that. I feel like everything has been totally fair so far. And the fact that I don't know what's going to come next is chef's kiss. It's great.
Excellent. Anything else on Hannibal season finale?
I'm glad that they stopped harping on, we get it, he serves people, whatever,
Yeah, wait a minute. What's the what's the
it was veal,
because it's Severo is season 1. So what are we going to in season 2? Are we going to
I think in season 2 they use like normal kind of names.
The next episode we're going to watch is Kaisuke.
See, this is
so we're getting
okay.
Japanese names for courses of food.
In an alternate universe, this show's still running, and there are so many episodes that the next episode is called Cherry Garcia.
And that, my friends, is Hannibal season 1, episode 13. Next week, we will talk about the season finale of WandaVision. We'll get to episode 1 of season 2 of Hannibal, and we will watch episodes 3 and 4 of Raised by Wolves. If you're a patron, thank you. You get these episodes early because of that, and because we love you and appreciate you at patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll spoil you again next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.